The internet scares me. Right, what are we doing?
Oh, what we're doing is changing things up, possibly for the better, possibly for the worse.
What's the plan then, Batman?
The plan is to not try and talk about these 4 fights. Because these... Well, sorry, these 3 fights, really. We'll count the exhibition separately because they're basically the same thing happening in all of them. One spinner dominates other spinner by driving well.
Yeah. Well...
So, Sam, do the outro.
So I think before we dive into BattleBots, though, we have some front matter to do quickly.
Oh, do we? Okay.
We have some front matter. I have some YouTube recommendations.
Sam, of course, is a famed fan of YouTube.
Look here, you. YouTube may be a terrible platform, but creative people are there. You should go and subscribe to and watch videos by James Bruton or the X Robots channel. Particularly go and watch the series on his Open Dog project, which is insane. If you just imagine all the stuff that Boston Dynamics do on a lower budget, but still absolutely incredible. And so he's just recently released a video where he's got his reverse kinematics to the point where he's got 6 axes of motion in the body now. So he's got his forwards, backwards, and left and right and up and down, and he's got his pitch, yaw, and roll for the body as well. And then he's going to start working on the on all the programming and stuff for walking around with it. But just the process of building it it's just a thing of beauty to behold. So you should definitely go and subscribe to that channel and watch those videos in particular.
I'm a little bit worried that you're recommending that people go and watch real robots instead of these ones. You know, robots that might actually meet some people's definition of a robot.
Well, I can't help it.
I sense a massive missed opportunity in this project, though.
Yeah?
I just wish it had been called Up Dog. Because I really wanted to ask, what's up, dog? That would have made me far happier than it should have. I almost went in anyway, but realised that's a terrible joke, and it's all James's fault.
It is.
Any other recommendations while we're here, or was it literally you want to recommend one thing?
I mean, that is the one I particularly want to recommend. But if you were going to push me, I've recently come across Barnaby Dixon, who is incredible. So, you know, if you like, he does like puppeteering, and it's honestly amazing. You have never, unless you've seen one of his videos before, you have never seen a puppet like what he makes before. So,
thanks, Sam.
You're welcome.
I was expecting like a reeling off of 7 or 8 recommendations here.
Do you want 7?
Because that's what I would do.
I can keep going if you want.
I mean, we've got time.
You should go and maybe not subscribe to Tested because they've got lots of other content that's less interesting, but go and watch all of Adam Savage's one-day builds. They're all really worth watching. And any behind the scenes with Adam involved. Basically, if it's got Adam in it, you should watch it. That's how that works. That's really good.
Yeah, keep going.
Frank Howarth is an amazing creator.
Yes.
Like even if you don't like woodworking, you need to just watch his videos because they're incredible.
I'm glad I pushed you now because I just get to spend a second thinking about how great Frank Howarth is. I really confused one of my colleagues either today or yesterday. It all blurs into one because I was sat there watching Frank Howarth as I worked. And they could not understand why you would want to sit there watching someone make dividers for a drawer. But it is... Yeah, it's the best thing I saw that day.
Because he's very good at what he does. He's very good at woodworking, and he's very good at making videos about it as well.
I think what all of these things have in common, and I assume this is true of the puppeteering thing that I've not seen, but it kind of goes back to what I really was thinking about when we were doing Split Decision, which is situations that give you interesting problems to solve. I think that's what makes this stuff interesting to watch for me, especially seeing people that are really good at solving those problems.
Yeah, I just love watching people who are experts at what they do work because it's just always amazing to see the level of work that people, or the level that people operate at and what they do. It's amazing.
And something else that I've found with, again, all of those people that I've watched is that they're happy to leave mistakes in.
Yeah.
And as someone that makes more mistakes than he would like, I always find that very valuable. I must admit, dare I say it? I've kind of gone off Colin Furze recently.
How could you go off Colin Furze?
Because it's all going too well.
I mean, he did have to completely rebuild a jet for his scooter twice, I think.
Okay, maybe I stopped watching at the wrong time then. Or maybe it all went wrong because I stopped.
Maybe. No, the last his most recent project, he's doing like a jet-powered scooter. And he's I think he's on his 3rd revision of that jet to do that, to make it work the way he wants. Or the other one that made me laugh was when he made his bike out of springs.
Oh, that
and,
was amazing, to be
and
fair.
spent God knows how much money getting more
On
and more
custom springs.
yeah, more and more custom springs made.
I hereby retract my criticism of Colin Furze. I knew it was a mistake in the first place. Like, he's often a name that comes up as people that should enter Robot Wars or alternatives.
I don't think he'd be capable of building a robot that would be safe enough.
Helichopper 2.0.
Yeah, I don't think he'd be capable of doing anything less than that.
I mean, I'd hope he's the kind of person that would go in with something intentionally ridiculous. Not effective. Not at all within the meta. Just really stupid. Like, something on the level of Chomp that's just got a lot of power and nothing else.
Yeah. Oh, he would be. It would be funny. And if nothing else, you can almost guarantee a really good and enjoyable series about building it. So
I have been thinking about, this was an idea that we kind of posited a long time ago now. Again, as a joke. But the idea of a flipper that fires on all sides. That's something that I was slightly sketching out at one point today. Because I kind of worked out a mechanism for that.
get you.
Which, if I can make it work at all, if I can prototype it, will be very exciting. It's a real slippery slope, isn't it? Such a slippery slope.
Just keeps going. Just ignore the sketches to your right there.
Of the non-invertible, non-self-writing amp weight.
Look here. It's perfect in every way.
It's a flawless machine.
What I've learned is that having like a paper blueprint almost is so incredibly satisfying. I don't think I'm going to bother learning CAD. I think I'm going to try and do the entire thing by hand because I love having that.
Where was this version of Sam a couple of weeks ago? I have noticed that you've done the same thing that I've done, which is use, well, in your case, dotted paper. I love using squared paper to design things.
It is.
Mainly because I can't draw a straight line otherwise.
It's the way forwards.
Anything I ever build will be made in units of 5mm.
Yeah, that's something that because I was trying to mess around with Blender and I'm going to be clear. I didn't spend very long trying to understand how to use Blender. So, like, I'm not saying that I spent hours and failed. I spent about 5 minutes and gave up. So, but the most obvious thing that I couldn't do was make things snap to 1mm increments.
That was the issue I had when I tried some very poor CAD software. I could make shapes and things,
Yeah.
but just being able to position things where I wanted them, I was hoping would be as intuitive as it is on the 2D software I use, Inkscape.
Yeah.
Just wasn't.
Yeah.
Just wasn't at all. People that can actually make good things in CAD, especially and then 3D print them, are wizards.
Yeah. So what I really want to do now is I want to get like big A2 sheets of paper and properly go for it and properly have like all the different like elevations and views for doing it. And like blown up scale drawings of how the mechanisms for various connectors and stuff should work. Just because, yeah, I mean, yeah, having a physical representation of a plan is shockingly satisfying.
And then fabricate it by just scoring and snapping a bit of ABS.
I think the most likely thing is I will go to great lengths to draw it and then never build it.
That might be the most satisfying route. Anyway, you know what we're doing right now?
No.
We're padding out an episode before getting to the actual content. Who'd do such a thing?
Who would do? Well, I think our padding is good. Ours is worth having.
I mean, I still argue that some padding is good. That's mostly to do with my body shape, though.
I think we could do an episode. Let's just not talk about that. Let's do it to 2 hours of just us talking about anything other than BattleBots.
I mean, if we're ever going to do it, this is the time. Because this was by far the fluffiest episode of the season.
Yes.
Although no worse than most of last season.
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens when you've only got 4 fights. I was wondering what they do to fill the time, and I was kind of expecting 2 or maybe even 3 exhibition matches. And yeah, we only got the 1, which was...
It was a decent one. I'm not going to say it was a good fight.
It was an excuse to get Tombstone in the final episode, I think, is the only way of phrasing that.
Yeah, which is a reasonable thing to want to do. I'm completely fine with that.
I wonder...
And it had its moment. It had the big moment, which really, the rest of the episode kind of didn't have a big moment. So in that respect, it's kind of served an extra purpose. But I know that loads were shot. Apparently lots of them are really good. And it's a shame that we didn't just see more.
Yeah, there's lots of, I don't know, people stuff in this.
Yeah, and none of it... It's always difficult doing a final episode of a competition like this because you've covered everything already. That's why I think this is a difficult episode for us to do. We've said everything there is to be said about these robots, and so have they. And the difference is that they just seem to want to repeat it more the later it gets on.
Yeah, they had that. Yeah, they don't have anything else to go to. Well, they don't think they have anything else to go to.
There's so much more they could. I feel bad moaning about this episode. But I must say, I think this wasn't a weak final. It was just an exceptionally strong season, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I
This
think
final is as good as any we've had so far. It's just the rest of the season has been so good, it's made this feel kind of poor.
Yeah. What can you do?
You can edit it better. Although what we have been given is the behind-the-scenes series with the worst name imaginable.
What was it?
BattleBots Resurrection.
Resurrection.
Which sounds like a Netflix spin-off of Star Trek.
Let's look at BattleBots Cubed.
That's tickled you way more than it should have. You shouldn't be laughing that much at your own joke.
Oh, well, because I'm trying to make it work. Because I'm trying to do like pluralized BattleBots, but obviously it's already a plural, so it doesn't work as well. Because it's like it's the Alien series of films, is what I'm getting.
Yeah.
At. So I want to do like the equivalent of Aliens, but for BattleBots. BattleBots.
BattleBots
BattleBots.
BattleBots is cubed.
Oh dear.
It's the third series as well. It would have made most sense.
Yeah, that was cute.
Opportunity missed.
They could have put a lot of this content, I think, in scattered throughout episodes, or some of it in this one, and it would have been more interesting than the fluff that we got. For me,
this
anyway.
is basically a better version of the Botopsy reports that we've only seen 2 or 3 of.
Yeah.
With arguably a better production value than the rest of the series. Probably because they've had longer to do it.
I'd guess so, but it's an amazing, it's a shocking difference in the motion graphics. Just the difference between the motion graphics in this and the motion graphics in the real series is just. It's night and day. It's
like the difference between the original series of Mythbusters and the final series.
You're going to hold the final series up as a really good series.
For graphics, yeah.
They went to town with the motion graphics.
I should be very clear. Graphics only, I'm talking about here. It's like that final series of Scrubs. It's just so good.
I didn't watch Scrubs.
It's probably for the best. You didn't have to watch it die a slow and painful death.
The worst one was How I Met Your Mother. It was
never good.
Well... You're entitled to your opinions, even if they're wrong. I really enjoyed it. And then I'm sort of glad that I didn't watch it while it was airing, so that I got the pain over quite quickly. But there was a really, I basically binged it, solidly until I got through all of it. And I really enjoyed all of it until the last series. Anyway, we can move on.
I feel like I need to restate once again that I've absolutely loved this season. But imagine next season with that production quality. Oh!
That would be
a world-beating piece of TV. Something that BattleBots has really tried to do over the last few seasons, maybe less so in this one, but it's still been there, is try to show us more of the people. And they usually do that by trying to concoct some kind of annoying narrative, when actually this was a far better insight into the people than anything they've done before. You've got interesting people doing interesting stuff that your audience in particular really want to see more of.
I agree.
I mean, it'd be good if you just double down on a flawed opinion instead.
I wanted to see more of the Bot 52 thing. What was it?
Bot 56.
56, I'm sorry.
Raven, yeah.
Raven, yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I feel like we missed out by not having it there, because it is a vertical spinner.
No, I don't think we missed out.
It looked like quite a nice one.
I'm interested to know the circumstances by which they were allowed to enter without a robot. Why were they there building a robot during filming? That's why. Why did that happen? I mean, it was interesting. And then further to that,
single-person team as well.
Yeah. Further to that, can we see more of the process of them trying to build that robot? Because I really enjoyed the little bit of it we got in, what was it, episode 6 of the behind-the-scenes thing. I think it was episode 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed the little. I want to see more of that. Show me more.
You want a live stream of a man struggling. That's what you want, isn't it?
Maybe.
A man's dreams falling apart in front of him, broadcast 24/7 on the internet. That's your dream.
Well, yeah. I mean, if he wants to go there and struggle instead of building a robot ahead of time like everyone else. Do you know why? Do you know why this happened? What led to the situation? No. Does anyone?
I imagine people do. I just haven't really tried to look into it, really, I suppose. It seems like we all know that this series was thrown together in a little bit of a rush. And when it comes to getting applicants in a rush, you maybe end up accepting things that you wouldn't ordinarily.
Mm.
So if this person has come along with a really good-looking CAD and a set of credentials that imply that they can get this thing together, I imagine you accept them.
Maybe what they did is they turned up with a nice big like tube of blueprints, laid them down on the producer's desk, whoom, rolled them out. Need some paperweights to hold these corners down. Check this out. I reckon that's what they did. That's it. That's my headcanon. It's
They went
done.
in uninvited. They were being held back by security guards as they came through the door, just waving their blueprints around.
I'm in.
Everyone else called them crazy, but the producer liked the cut of their jib. I can easily imagine, a team comes along with a good design. They look like people that can pull it off. And then all it takes is for a series of mounting mishaps to get in the way. And I imagine there comes a point where you might as well just let them turn up and build it rather than reject them outright. This is a season in particular that was formatted in a way that people could turn up a bit late and still be part of it. I imagine in the old school format, if you came along and missed your first fight, well, that's it, you're done.
Yeah.
So you better have it ready before the tournament.
Yeah.
But in this case, they could afford to almost take a gamble on someone. And it's a shame that gamble ended in this person not getting to have a fight, but it looks like a lot of people gave it the best shot they could.
Yeah, I don't doubt that there was a lot of man hours put into that.
Oh, yeah. And again, we've seen how unusual it is to have a successful one-person team. And this maybe does show why. And I would imagine that it was probably easier trying to build that in the pits with all those people around than it would have been trying to build it in your garage at home.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you got access to like the tools as well. All the machining stuff.
Yeah, it's a shame it didn't make it in, just because a lot of work went into it. I don't think the series needed another vertical, as I say, but when someone's put that much energy in, you would like to see them get some kind of reward.
Yeah. Oh well. Next time.
Should we have a quick word on the exhibition match, which, according to some reports I've heard, was meant to be Raven, Bot 56, against Tombstone. In fact, I've heard so many conflicting reports. Some say that Tombstone, too many T's. Some say that Tantrum just plain volunteered. Some say they stepped in last minute. Who knows
All I
what went
know
on?
is he's called the Stick.
Oh, no.
You laughed.
I'm going to point out that's not a pun, that's a reference.
But you still laughed.
Oh, I did, because it was funny. If only Bombshell were in this episode.
If only.
We need to deal with the moment, don't we?
The moment, okay.
The moment in which a piece of shrapnel almost breached the arena and could have killed someone. Because that's exactly what happened here. Much like that time Apex nearly killed 3 people.
It's a deadly sport.
I can't believe that they'll put a spinner like Tombstone in there when it could clearly break its way out at a moment's notice.
I think Tombstone probably, like, given enough time, Tombstone could break his way out, I suspect.
Yeah, but that's probably more by, like, attacking the joint of the door or something. I have seen so many people referring to this as that fist getting lodged in the wall.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to say categorically, and I will get a screenshot of this for the show notes, that fist was in a structural, possibly even decorative thing inside the walls of the arena.
It was clearly embedded halfway through the protective wall run. I don't know what could you...
I mean, halfway, I think, is an understatement. It was hanging on by a thread, I know, but...
Do you really believe your eyes?
I mean...
Can they be trusted? How do you know the government's not in there doing something?
It did look like there might have been a little bit of editing going on there. They're blanking out clocks. What next?
Oh, God. They're not blanking out clocks.
They might be blanking out clocks.
They're certainly not doing it in post.
Oh, yeah. They employ a guy who just blanks out the clock at key moments.
They might do. They might turn them off. There could be a switch somewhere.
A hidden switch.
A hidden switch. Maybe one of the judges is going just under the table quickly.
Oh, we all know which one it is as well.
I'm not going there. I'm just saying one of the judges, and I'll let you decide who, decides that she wants to cause some controversy. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that.
But only if it benefits Chomp. No other time. But yeah, this is
become the very thing I swore to destroy.
This was a very spectacular moment. It was rightly highlighted. Slight shame that it was spoiled beforehand by, I think it was Kenny himself. Kenny or Chris? Yeah, Kenny posting it that it happened. Bit of a shame, but...
I have the solution to you for these things, by the way. For one, getting annoyed at seeing all the people say stupid things online, and then also seeing spoilers. And the answer is just don't go on Reddit as much.
Oh no, I'm fine with having this spoiled. It's just that the process of being spoiled was more interesting and more entertaining than seeing the spoiler play out. So I still got something out of it. I just got my gratification early. But I do wonder if it's really a good idea to be posting that kind of thing up when you are involved with the show. Good for building a bit of hype, I feel. But at the same time, you look at it and go, well, there's only a couple of robots that would have done that.
He's just excited. He's just tweeting the things that he cares about. Or
Who does that?
Or putting them on whatever social media he uses. I don't know.
The Instagrams.
The Instagrams.
Finest of the social medias.
Snapstagram.
Oh, I see. I was trying not to go there.
I went there.
Should we start out? Should we start up a Spinnerproof Instagram?
No.
Good. Snapchat it is.
You can start whatever accounts you're willing to manage.
I mean, I don't even really want to do Twitter.
I'll have as little to do with it as possible, please.
Please, you use the Twitter more than I do now.
I can cope with the Twitter. I mostly like Twitter. There's areas of Twitter that are not good.
You tolerate Twitter. Anything more on the sort of production side of things, or should we start getting into some robots? Some robots that have earned their place in this episode rather than just choosing to fight.
Yeah, we can move on. Where do you want to start?
So what we think we're going to do is sort of take a look at these robots more in general than talking about these specific fights. Does that still sound fair?
Yeah.
So we'll start out with the abject failures, the losers of this episode. Lockjaw.
Lockjaw.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how unhappy do you think I would have been if Lockjaw had won this season?
I think you'd be more upset about that than the bombshell tombstone thing.
Oh yeah, by far.
And I think you'd be
by
more,
a very, very long way.
And I think more upset still than the duck bombshell thing as well. Similar levels, maybe.
It's tricky to balance. Tombstone bombshell was an understandable defeat that was a fight being lost as much as a fight was won. So that I'm fine with.
Mm-hmm.
The duck bombshell thing, again, I can understand that is within the rules. It's just that the rules were wrong. This would have represented so much more. And to be honest, in a sense, the fact that Bite Force 1 also represents that we've got a machine and, to be honest, a builder in general that was previously an interesting, different, innovative design that added variety to the series that has now jumped on the meta and been successful with it. So yeah, I would have been a bit upset. As much as Noel Hudson is a very good builder, very good driver, has had success before and will have success again, it would have been upsetting for me to see Lockjaw win this season in particular, because I think it is just more reason for other teams to jump on the meta of being avert. And the way in which it lost was quite satisfying to me, in that it came up against a machine that does what it's trying to do, but does it better because it is at least an old design that has been refined a number of times.
Yeah, it's like much more built around that drum than Lockjaw's built around its weapon. I don't know what to call it.
It's a weapon system, isn't it? Because they've got the forks and the spinner.
Yeah. And am I right in thinking they had the option, even if they never took it, to put the old jaws back on it if they wanted to?
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, I'm slightly upset that we never saw those. Although I suppose one thing I would say in Lockjaw's favour there is that there aren't really many fights where you would look at those and go, they are objectively the better option. So that would have been them just doing it for the sake of show, which, as much as we appreciate it, we can't really expect it from any.
Yeah. You have to wonder, would they have been good against Minotaur?
Well,
because they can sort of like, by being ablative and being able to come in from like the top and the bottom of the drum, they can sort of like stop that weapon maybe.
Like against Yeti.
Yeah.
Interesting. My initial response when you said that was no, because even though Minotaur was running the little forks rather than the whole sort of low semi-wedge thing that it has, the forks were struggling to get under it. Which makes you think that the flipper would also do the same, but the idea of using it more as a jaw, hence the name, that doesn't sound like a bad idea. It is a very defensive approach, that's the problem.
Yeah.
And I think it would be seen that way by the judges, but yeah, with the benefit of hindsight in particular, that does not sound like a bad strategy at all.
There you go.
You should build robots.
I should get into that.
Yeah, I'm stunned by how much I like that idea. And now even more disappointed.
Yeah.
Although, this approach did lead to it losing the fight, which is what I wanted. So, maybe I should be happy with that.
You win something. It's like one of those like monkeys' paw wishes things. Maybe get more interesting fights, but then you get Lockjaw winning things.
There's a whole thing there, actually, about my sort of wish list for BattleBots and robot combat in general and how wrong it could go, but that might be another episode. The one thing I will say that I still really love about Lockjaw is the wheels. Watching that thing get bounced around is endlessly satisfying. And the fact that it took a lot of hits to the wheels, in the Minotaur fight in particular, but also across the season, it took a few decent hits. And took them really well, when so often we see the robots with exposed wheels almost willing to shed them at a moment's notice, almost looking to shed them. And the fact that Minotaur, of all things, hasn't taken any wheels off, it's actually pretty good going.
Yeah, it's a very robust robot, it has to be said.
And the wedge as well. Well, the plough. Oh, that was close.
I'm leaving it in.
That was close.
I'm leaving it in.
The plough has turned out to be a really valuable addition as well. Not something that would necessarily work against another vertical, but the fact they've gone past Son of Waiachi with what was relative ease, really. Although offensively they didn't really offer much in that fight. And what was the other horizontal they went up against? Was it Gigabyte? No, Gigabyte lost to Lucky. They went up against another horizontal where that really worked. And I now can't think what it was. Oh, Valkyrie. Admittedly not tested as much because the weapon broke so quickly. But that, as a defensive solution, I think is one of the best we've seen. Unless you count Bronco just sticking curved bits of metal on it and allowing itself to be pushed around.
Different kind of defense.
Anything else to say on Lockjaw?
Don't think so.
Well, let's go to a completely different robot with 4 big wheels and a spinner on the front named Whiplash.
Poor Whiplash in this fight. Poor Whiplash. It was brutal.
Whiplash had done to them what they did to Bronco. We have the driver in the field that has shown his skills the most this season and shown that ability to get on an opponent and never leave them alone. Being completely beaten at his own game. It was an incredible fight to watch. I think if there is one fight out of these to talk about, it is this one. Because that, once again, was just stunning driving from Bite Force.
Yeah. There's not much more. It's just, yeah.
I suppose, I know what you're going to want to talk about in this fight. You're going to want to talk about the end, aren't you?
There's nothing controversial about that movement at all.
I mean, it was uncontrolled. It was non-translational. It wasn't even transitional.
What's interesting about that is that, to me, like, he moved with as much intent and as effectively as a robot that's gyro dancing. Like, he was like, you could see, like, he was dragging himself around, and when Bite Force moved, he followed it as best he could with that thing. Like, he was going to just keep trying to do everything he could to put that robot in his opponent's weapon again. And so sort of like, it was, I would argue, as controlled as any gyro dancing stuff. And yet, you know, here we are where they got counted out and gyro dancers don't.
It's an interesting way of looking at it. I think I largely agree, although I think that truly excellent gyro dancing will give you a lot more control and a lot more movement than this. I think it's more worth comparing this to robots like Lucky that were doing exactly the same thing and didn't get counted out.
Yeah. I mean, in an ideal world, I'd have complete control over what the rules were.
And you wouldn't write them beforehand, you'd decide them at the time. I think that's really what you want, isn't it? You want full control over individual situations.
Well, no, because this brings me to my point, is I don't particularly mind what the rules are as long as they're consistently enforced. And that's the thing that feels particularly irritating about this, because as you just mentioned, there have been other robots that have done almost exactly this and not been counted out. And then in this one, they are. And it's sort of like, I feel more strongly about it being consistent than about either of the other options. If it's that they don't get counted out, that's fine. If it's that they do get counted out, that's also fine. Keep it consistent. That's the important thing. You know, rules are only worth having if they are consistently enforced.
I wouldn't have been surprised if they'd gone for a kind of system, even if this was informal, that they would count out earlier in the kind of pre-season matches than in a knockout. It would make sense to me that they would have a stricter idea of what movement is early on to prevent robots from taking late hits that put them out. And I would expect them to then potentially loosen that up later on in the tournament when robots are out if they die anyway.
But that's not what they did.
But it's almost like the opposite has happened.
Yeah.
I feel like the definition has almost become less lenient as we've gone.
Yeah. Yeah, they've been stricter with it as we've gone on.
Which again, I suppose, kind of makes sense in terms of this match matters more.
Yeah, you could also put it down to just it's been like a learning exercise, because I don't know if it's the same like crew and company and stuff that have done it all. So there may well be just a bunch of people involved that have never done this before, and it's like a learning exercise for everyone. I don't know.
The referees, I think, have been consistent across the 3 seasons.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
that
Well.
helps.
Well. I mean.
But that doesn't mean that the people around them are the same.
Yeah, so I was going to sort of say, maybe this has just been like a learning exercise, and rather than being consistent from day one and then applying all of their learnings in one fell swoop for season 4, they've sort of applied their learnings as they've gone, which, don't do it. Be consistent.
I suppose the one thing that I should mention in the interest of fairness here is that the team didn't seem upset. Probably because they knew that they didn't really have a chance. They just also felt responsibility to try and keep going, just in case.
Yeah, they'd lost that fight, and this is one of the situations where, like, on the whole, while I'm not particularly fussed either way, I do prefer this to the situations we've had with like Lucky and stuff where they're not being counted out, and it just makes for a really dull final 2 minutes of a fight. So I'd sort of rather this, but yeah, it's just frustrating that it's changed mid-season, I think.
And we've gone through before the ways that we think this could be done better. But I do think this is particularly an example where what has probably happened is that the referees have been communicating quite clearly with the team about what they need to count as movement.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not something that we as an audience can then see.
Yeah.
And I do think the more visible this is to an audience, the better. So the old spotlight idea, for example, then comes in of, can you move out of this zone?
Yeah. Now, I don't really watch many other sports, and I feel like you do.
Really?
So I just wanted to ask, in other sports, how much time do they dedicate to teaching these rules and stuff like that?
What do you mean by teaching them?
Well, so you're always sort of like saying, it'd be nice if we could sort of see more of the communication between the refs and that kind of stuff. And like my only sort of experience is, I think in rugby you can hear what the refs are saying.
Yeah.
But like other than that, I don't know what else is done. Like if you're watching football, do you have a sense of what the referees are doing? Do you know those conversations? Or in like other sports, like do you watch like Formula 1? And I've heard you talk about F1 and stuff. Like, does the commentary for that sort of go into details of what the team's doing, what it means when they're doing like all the crazy like pit work and stuff when they're rebuilding a car in 2 seconds? What it seems like, do they talk about sort of what it takes to do that in there?
That's become quite a multi-layered question, so I'll deal with rules and refereeing first.
Good plan.
That varies massively by sport. So for me as a football fan, I don't watch my football on TV, I watch my football live. And you are going by the hand signals from the referee to explain what decision has been made. So if a player has been penalised for a foul, you can usually work out where the foul was and you can tell who the free kick is being given to, and from that you work it out. But there's also nuance within that where, if for example it's a handball, quite often the referee will signal that as well. If the player has pulled on someone's shirt in particular, they will often give a signal for that. This is much part of their communication with the players as it is with the crowd.
Yeah.
If you're watching football on TV, you're not getting to hear anything that's going on with the referees, but you have got commentators who are there to kind of translate it. And they're usually people that have played the game and watched the game enough that they know what the foul was anyway.
Yeah. So
And what you then get on top of that as a layer is you will usually get discussion at halftime and full time that is as much about the referee as it is about the players. Now, that's not something I like, but TV and media in general thrives on controversy, and it's usually the controversy of a game that gets discussed, and that's going to involve the officials.
Yeah.
And that is, again, where you'll get a lot more depth on what the referee did, what people think they should have done. And what is really key to that is that on TV most of the time, you will have a group of pundits who are technically impartial, but they will usually have some people that have links to one team and some that have links to another. So you're more likely to get a debate about it than information.
Yeah.
Which I think ends with you actually getting far more information. You seem like you had a question to come in with that. I'll just give you a chance.
I was going to ask like what. It's a dumb question, maybe. How do you learn the ref signals? I'm assuming they don't try and teach it in quotes.
Oh no,
on
you just
television.
pick it
It's
up as you
just
go along.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, there are places you could go to look all of it up if you wanted to. You could train as a referee if you wanted to, and then you're going to learn everything. But yeah, it's something that is very much picked up and passed down.
Yeah, fair enough.
You mentioned something like Formula One as well. Formula One is a very interesting one where the officials are invisible.
Mm.
So what you've got is a group that are sort of known as race control or the stewards, and they are communicating with the teams and also with the media companies that run the coverage. So they will be sending messages in real time about, we are investigating this incident between this person and this person for this reason.
Mm.
And then a few minutes later, you will get the decision on that. So that is a really clear and really effective line of communication,
Yeah.
which very rarely gets challenged by the commentators and pundits. You'll often get very lengthy articles a couple of hours afterwards explaining in detail the rule, because the rules in F1 are usually ridiculously complex. It will often be down to, or I say often, quite often you will get a thing come up halfway through that a certain driver is being investigated for something on their car that might be illegal. And that's when you find out that, oh, actually, the base plate on it has worn down by 2 millimeters too much, and therefore they're disqualified. So that's not the kind of thing that you can easily communicate with people.
Yeah.
And most fans don't know most of the rules.
Mm.
And I think that's maybe more analogous to BattleBots, where so many of the people watching this, I realise, and we're not exactly experts, so many people that are watching this have no clue what the rules are anyway, and I'm not sure they care.
Yeah.
Because they are viewing it as entertainment, not sport. And that is the key difference here. We know that it is a sport, but it's being televised almost purely as entertainment.
Is it that? Because it has the format of a sports show in so many ways. There's there's the event, and then there's some commentators that are giving commentary on what's going on and giving analysis for what's just happened and discussing tactics, and not in as much depth as in other sports. Like if you watch like the Tour de France or F1 and stuff, like they will have like big discussions about what's going on.
Mainly because the action is actually pretty slow in those things.
Yeah, and they don't really have time to do it in BattleBots. I think even if they gave it more time, I don't think they'd do it, because there's not quite as much to go into in many ways. So it's sort of like, there's only so much you can draw out of a 3-minute fight, although I think we do a pretty good job sometimes. We can drag it out. So yeah. So I think they sort of do frame it as a kind of a sporting event, and like watching some like behind the scenes interviews with Kenny and Chris and stuff, I think they sort of view it as a sporting thing as well, in terms of the way that it's shown and portrayed and things, which is why I sort of like ask, what's this kind of thing like in other televised sporting events, because it's sort of, that's an interesting measure to go, we're saying, oh, we'd like more information about what's going on, and I was sort of thinking, well, do you get more information in other sports? And it sounds like you do. So yeah, it's sort of like, so it's definitely possible and a done thing to have more transparency into what the rules are and the thinking behind the various decisions and stuff. It's definitely a done thing in televised sports.
And the thing that I would be looking for to say that this, as a piece of TV, has made a transition into being sports broadcast, not entertainment broadcast, is actual informed discussion about the rules. How many times have you heard in this season either Kenny or Chris still refer to the need for a robot to do damage with its primary weapon? Something that hasn't been a rule all season. Powered weapon, not primary weapon.
Yeah.
That is not something that any football commentator would get away with on a regular basis. If they started explaining a rule wrong, someone would be telling them, oh, you need to brush up on this.
Yeah.
I also think the fact that we're still not hearing anything from the judges, and when we do, they don't talk about the rules either. The people that should be most in tune with the rules, apart from the referees, aren't talking about their decisions in terms of the rules. They are talking about it from a fan's perspective, which to me, again, puts it in that realm of entertainment. You want the fans to relate to you as another fan who's going, ooh, wasn't that wonderful, rather than as an actual official as part of a sport. And I must admit, as much as I like it, putting celebrities in as judges also enhances that feeling. Yeah,
it's always been interesting, that thing in BattleBots of seeing these celebrity judges, and it's sort of, I think it's been, I don't know if is it more or less true in this series than others?
In the previous series, or the previous seasons, I think we've had a different guest judge basically every episode.
Yeah, but in the previous ones, they've been like 2 consistent judges and then a third randomer for all intents and purposes. And this one, they've been sort of like, I guess, it feels like they've had like a pool of judges and they're just sort of grabbed 3.
Yeah, I mean...
And I don't know what you want to define as celebrity, because the ones that are more well-known to me are the kinds of judges I think should be in it, because they're people who've competed. Whereas, Naomi Kyle, I think, is probably more of a celebrity in the traditional sense because she's from like games
Yeah,
journalism
she's
or
from the
something.
world of esports,
Yeah.
which, as someone who has been a judge on most episodes, kind of makes sense. Although I'd rather just see 3 ex-competitors there personally, but I know it's quite an American thing to have celebrity guests. That's just part and parcel of that ecosystem, and I can deal with it. We've had Derek Young a lot, which is a really good thing. We've had... Who else have we had that's actually ex-competitors?
The Tentamushi
We've had,
person.
we had Lisa Winters quite a lot, although I feel not quite enough.
Mm-hmm.
We've then had Simone Gietch. I've butchered that, I know, but I tried. In for a couple, who is someone that is at least in that kind of tech sphere. She is someone who you feel would have a knowledge of and interest in what's going on internally with these things.
Yeah, I think she's on. I would say that she and Naomi are on a similar level there of like what's going on. I reckon.
Yeah, I think Naomi will have gained a lot through the season. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I don't know what her interests are, but with Simone, you can easily go. She is a person that builds things, and that is the very clear link in. Whereas esports isn't such an obvious link, but it still makes sense as being a sport, albeit one that isn't very well recognised in the same way that this is.
Yeah.
And I still think that Naomi has been a perfectly reasonable judge most of the time. It's worth pointing that out once again, just because anytime we're talking about her, I feel I need to reiterate that she's not been that bad.
They've all been fine, really, haven't they?
Yeah, although I think 3 ex-competitors would be perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, and Grant O'Hara reappeared, of course. I forgot that.
Oh, yeah.
And I need to mention that just because I called it pre-season.
No Adam Savage, though.
That surprises me.
I wonder if he was there at all, because hasn't there been nothing... I was sort of like hoping there'd be a video on testing.
Yeah, I was expecting testing. I think they did the 2016 season, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then nothing since, which is... I've been surprised both times that they've not been there. Although William Osman was there, so that's basically good enough.
You and your William Osman.
I gotta love a bit of William Osman.
Do you, though?
Yeah.
But do you, though?
I'm now worried that you don't like William Osman.
I can't say I've watched much of that. So
if you like laser cutting, you'll love William Osman. YouTube recommendations part 2.
No, even more.
Yeah, I can't remember where this discussion started.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Let's move on.
I think we were trying to give Whiplash the credit they deserve quickly, weren't we?
Oh God, Whiplash. Yes, Whiplash.
It's been fantastic. I think it is probably the robot that I personally overlooked the most when I was looking at contenders. I think them and Rotator, and I suppose Bite Force to an extent actually, are robots that I failed to give the credit they deserved until very late in the season.
Yeah.
You know, we've got a former Robo Games champion here. It's obviously no slouch. And completely deserves to be in the top 4.
You need to get your stuff together there, Ryan. You need to sort of like recognise these good robots ahead of time, and then not be thinking that like Endgame is really good.
Endgame came in with a lot of promise, which was deserved, and just happened to have a slightly tougher time than I envisaged.
Is that so?
And I think when they're in their sort of 3rd or 4th major tournament, they'll be as good as Whiplash.
One can hope so. Maybe with a robot that's not a vertical spinner, though.
Again, I know it's weird that I like Endgame, but I do, so we just got to move on.
What I reckon is that you like all vertical spinners. Like
I just hide it really
You just
well.
try your very hardest to hide it. Do you like... Because you really like
Yeah, I really liked Aftershock, but Aftershock was the only effective vertical spinner in Robot Wars. Aftershock was a vertical spinner in an ecosystem of wedge flippers.
So is that you really like... Well, not really like, but you like Bite Force?
I like old Bite Force.
Old Bite Force.
I appreciate modern
Bite Force. Okay, you respect and appreciate. Okay.
I understand the power and effectiveness of modern Bite Force.
Isn't that a Warhawk?
I like some elements of Warhawk. I like the modular design, and I like the shock mounting between everything.
Okay.
And the way that makes it wobble a bit. And I like their use of mini-bots.
You like Sharkorprian?
I like it as an art bot that happens to be vaguely effective. I also like Ed Robinson. I can never remember which it is.
Who knows?
I always start thinking of ice cream and then I get distracted. Any other verticals you think I like too much?
I'm just pointing out that,
no, it's completely fair.
that you often complain about there being too many verticals, and then you're often saying, I know I shouldn't be saying this, but I actually quite like insert vertical here.
Well, what I want is just the verticals I like and no others.
But that's a lot of that's my point. That's a lot of verticals still.
To be fair, I like at least 50% of the robots in BattleBots generally. So I don't think the fact that I like probably roughly 50% of the verticals is necessarily some smoking gun gotcha moment.
I think it is. I found my smoking gun. I've caught you
Then I
red-handed.
shall blow on it. Yeah, I will maybe, now the season is done, I might go through another list of my robots in order of favourites and in order of ones I think are best.
Oh no!
And I encourage you to do the same.
Of course you do. You know I won't.
I think if you gave 10 minutes a day for 5 days through my patented system,
then I would have given 50 minutes of my time to a pointless task.
It's not a pointless task, but it's for the listeners. Is it, listeners? Yeah, I'm addressing you directly. It's weird, isn't it?
Oh God! Don't answer him.
Tweet at.
Oh no!
I don't know your Twitter handle. It's fine.
Aha!
Look it up. Is that enough giving Whiplash credit? Which we didn't really do.
We both like Whiplash. Moving on.
Whiplash did very well. The finalists.
The finalists.
Out of interest, going into this fight. Actually, first of all, going into the final, who did you want to win? Not who you thought would win, who you wanted to.
I wanted Minotaur to win.
I came in wanting Whiplash to win. I was going to ask you who you then wanted in the final, but I'm guessing you didn't change your mind.
No.
I was obviously backing Minotaur. I want to see them finally win something. I still like drums.
Yeah.
Which are distinctly different to the classic vertical spinner. Did you honestly expect them to win it? Because I know I didn't.
I thought they stood a chance, and then I remembered who they were fighting. I don't know. I did, to be honest, I didn't give it a great deal of thought before the fight started, who I think would win. So I don't think I can give like a really fair and honest answer about this, to be honest, at this point. But you know, I wanted Minotaur to win, and I think they had a chance at doing it. Like they've got a decent robot.
Bite Force has just looked unstoppable.
Yeah.
It is just such a well-refined machine, which always looks so unbothered by everything it does. Every time Bite Force puts a hit in, it doesn't seem to move. Which I suppose is largely explained by the fact that the weapon isn't running nearly as fast as a lot of others. It's focused on just transferring that energy efficiently and does a hell of a job of it. Nice wide bar, nice low stance, really effective at getting under things, very low centre of gravity. Everything about it is just right. And then the driving on top of it. I mean, no one's ever called Daniel a bad driver. But there was no way that he or the machine was going to be able to match just the sheer plantedness of Bite Force. And the fact that you can attack again and again with it because it's ready immediately.
Yeah, you could almost describe Bite Force as perfectly balanced.
As all things should be.
As all things should be.
You've been waiting for that, and I'm glad that you had the opportunity.
In doing this podcast with you, I've learned that I like memes a lot more than I'm sort of normally willing to admit.
I had such a flow there, and it's all gone now.
You're welcome.
Minotaur took some big damage in this fight, and I don't think people necessarily appreciate how big that damage was.
I mean, they lost the entire side of their robot, really, didn't they?
Yeah, so that frame rail down the left, which is just one milled piece of aluminium, they had one of these they had both of these crack against Tombstone. Repeated hits from Tombstone cracked them. They replaced those with new ones. These are not the ones that went up against Tombstone. Bite Force has hit them so hard in the face that their arm has basically fallen off. That hit has transferred down, clearly broken it in two distinct places. The part that covers the wheel has flown off and has presumably left the left side of the drum just mounted to basically nothing.
Air-mounted drum.
That is one hell of a hit.
I mean, that was a massive. That hit in the middle of the fight was massive, which I think is where a lot of the damage was done. But I mean, you know, Bite Force did a lot of damage before and after that as well. Like, just kept going with it. It's crazy damage.
I wish there was more to say, but that is Bite Force in a nutshell. It's not spectacular. It's not even particularly good looking. What's wrong?
I just got the perfect image of Bite Force in a nutshell when it was just there in my head, just immediately.
I have to ask, what kind of nut?
A walnut shell.
It should have been a giant nut.
It should have been. No, it was. Yeah, there you go. Bombshell in the middle. I expect that in the show notes now. In a walnut shell. Oh, that was bizarre. I've never had such a clear...
For some reason, I'm putting it in like the little cup of an acorn in my head.
That's also funny.
A little velvety home.
I feel like it's very rare that I get such a clear image triggered by something that someone says. But it was as if someone held up a phone in front of me with the image there. It was crazy.
But yeah, Bite Force won. Bite Force deserved it. Bit of trivia test for you. What's the only robot that Bite Force has ever lost to?
Ever lost to?
Because there is only one. They've
Chomp.
been in... exactly.
It's Chomp, yeah. I love that.
Which means, by playground rules, Chomp is a double champion.
Chomp is the winner. Chomp should get the giant nut.
With the winner decided, I suppose we've just got to sum up our overall thoughts on the series, really.
I think it's going to be a rather uncontroversial segment. I think we both really liked it.
It's been the best series of any robot combat program.
Yep.
By a very long way.
Yeah, big margin there.
I mean, Clashbots ran it close, but well, I mean, in terms of length, it runs it pretty close.
Yeah, I can't sort of believe quite how long BattleBots has been going on for.
It's been on for half of the year, essentially.
That's crazy.
Which means that we have been following it on this for about half of the year. And to be fair, it feels like we have as well. But
Yeah. Yeah, there's a small part of me that's glad it's done so that we can
Yeah.
stop producing Spinnerproof for a bit, but it's...
I think it shows that about halfway through we decided that maybe we'd do an episode every 2 weeks.
very ambitious at the beginning.
Because it turns out, when you're shooting for a reasonable standard of audio and production, it's kind of hard to do one a week.
This is, I don't know, this is pulling back the curtain a lot. It's really brutal to do that on top of everything else that I need to do in a week.
Yeah. I've had a few weeks where it's like, the hard thing for me is that we have to record on a Tuesday. That is the day that works.
Yeah.
And that's also the print deadline for the programme, for the football club I do loads of media with.
Oh, no.
Not a good combination, it turns out. Not a good combination at all. After this, I will be running home and doing like 2 hours of proofreading.
Crikey. Well, I appreciate the sacrifice.
And I say that as the person that does the least work. So, yeah, I mean, I think if Robot Wars went on for this many episodes, I would have become sick of doing this. Whereas with BattleBots, it has been such high quality throughout that the only time I've ever felt down about it in any way has just been this final being a bit underwhelming because they went back to old ways with the fluff.
Yeah. I was also thinking about the fluff a bit more. I'm sort of like wondering, if they had done what I expected them to do and had like two exhibition fights, would they have felt that detracted too much from the point of the episode, which was the finals of their tournament, of their world championships?
I would I would understand that as an argument. I wouldn't agree with it. I can see why they would think that way, but actually I would argue that having a longer gap between the semi-finals and final would add more suspense to the final itself. If you have, say, Tombstone versus Tantrum, no need to do intros on that. Just set it up. Hey, here's a cool fight. Really powerful spinner versus very thick armor. Let's see what happens. Oh, look, a fist got stuck in a pipe. Move along. Rumble. Introduce it quickly. 6 robots that we like to see. Lots of cool stuff happens. In between that, do your little cut back to the pits if you want to. Build a little more suspense. Remind people that that's coming. And then get into it properly at the end. You can go back to doing your full Farouk intro. That's fine. It's the final. We get why you're doing that.
That grated on me. Not Farouk in particular. Like, that was fine still. I'm still middle ground on Farouk. The thing that grated was the full through the tunnel entrance for every single team in every fight.
Seeing the same team walk through the tunnel twice in an episode.
It's too much.
It's a little much. But again, I understand why they do it. I just don't necessarily like it.
Yeah.
If we're going to have fluff, I'd rather have the fluff that is at least talking about the robots, the fluff that is in the pit.
Yep.
But that's only really been an issue over the final 3 episodes for me. You don't watch it with adverts. You don't watch it live. With adverts, it was a nightmarish hellscape of medication and energy drinks, basically.
That is...
The fact that they cut to an ad break right before a fight was an actual kick in the genitals. It was...
Do you reckon...
It was like, you've spared us this all season, and now you turn back to that.
There's that, and there's the very vindictive move of removing everything off of YouTube in the final tournament bit. I mean, I did have ads when I watched it, because like this, for the first time, rather than it was a video that was just sort of somehow there and under the radar, it was a video that had been caught by someone and was being monetized, presumably Discovery, I don't know, or someone who claimed it was there. I don't know. There were ads in the video on YouTube, and it was annoying. Not at the same places.
I'm guessing
though.
not the full 4.5
No,
minute
they
ad
were
breaks of American TV.
They were like 5, but even a 5-second thing that I have to sit through before I can skip drives me up the wall, and it's especially irritating when it happens halfway through a fight because YouTube has no idea what the content is.
Or more importantly, the person that set that video up didn't take the time to put the ads where the ad breaks would have been.
This is true. Yeah, there's another option.
I'm surprised that we don't see more marketing of tech-based stuff during BattleBots, as in the ad breaks between parts. It's just the classic American, do you have this illness? Try this medication. Do not take this medication if you are allergic to this medication. This medication may cause every side effect. That's this medication. Ask your doctor now.
But
having that for the same medication every ad break, sometimes twice in an ad break, it's like, this captures a very specific audience, but apparently the ecosystem of marketing on American TV is so strongly geared towards medication. It's just in every advert on every show.
I think it's safe to say that healthcare is big business in America. And we should move on before I go on a rant about it.
The one thing that I will criticise Discovery for massively is their underutilisation of their YouTube channel and online content in general. Yes, we've had this mini-series behind the scenes. So much more could have gone up. The only time we've seen them do anything is when they clarified the Rumble rules before a Rumble. And that set off alarm bells purely because it was so unusual.
Yeah.
If they were doing stuff like that on a weekly basis, no one would have batted an eyelid.
It's all part of the plan. I think this is true of media just all around the world. It's frustrating that so much of it is geo. It drives me up the wall that it's all geo-restricted. The other thing that I sort of saw recently that I really want to watch but can't because it's not available in the UK, apparently. I'm sure I'll find a way around that. Is Alton Brown's Good Eats thing. He's doing like Good Eats Reloaded or something for a bit, and then he's got like another and then like another sort of full like series of it at some point afterwards. What clips I've seen of Good Eats on YouTube I really enjoyed. I think Alton Brown is an interesting guy.
It is the single best cookery show ever made.
Yeah, and he is an interesting guy and a very good presenter of the things that he does, and he is
one of the best explainers of concepts I have ever seen.
I could watch him do just about anything, I think. And
anything?
Just about. I qualified that and you know it.
Damn, I don't have power over the edit.
So I'm sad that that's all geo-restricted, and it's like obviously the whole of BattleBots is ostensibly geo-restricted as well, and it's just frustrating that this is true of content everywhere. And I'm sure there's stuff that only airs in the UK that Americans are annoyed about. I just don't know what it is.
I'm okay with the episodes themselves being geo-restricted for a certain amount of time. Geo-restrict them until it goes out on the Science Channel if you want. I don't mind. But there is nothing stopping you putting at least some individual fights up that didn't get aired. And just allowing people to watch it. Because let's face it, and I know this is the worst argument morally in so many ways, but if you don't, people are going to pirate it.
I mean, that is the thing. That is how this is how piracy continues. Like the biggest thing about piracy is that there are a small number of people that will always pirate because they're cheapskates. There are a large number of people that will pirate because it's more convenient than anything else. And then there are some people who are upstanding moral citizens who will buy it no matter how irritating it is because they don't want to break the law. And it's sort of like the way to, I mean, like I said, you'll never end piracy, but the way to reduce it is to make it convenient to pay for it. Like, that makes such a huge difference.
Or, in this case, make it possible to pay for it.
Or possible,
possible legally, without having to lie about where you are.
Yeah, so it's just sort of, the more, like, I think, I was going to say, sort of like, I think music is a good example of this, of it's sort of like, I don't even consider looking anywhere. I just go, well, I'm just going to buy it on Amazon or wherever, Google Music or iTunes if you feel a bit sadistic. You can just go buy it anywhere, and no matter where you buy it from these days, you'll just get a DRM-free MP3 that you can do what you want with forever. And that convenience and the fact that there's no stupid strings attached to it means that it's just like it's not even a question. It's just like, well, I'm just going to go and buy it. Whereas like for other things, it's you sort of have to go. So many things that I want to watch that I can't buy. It's like, well, the correct thing to do obviously is not watch it, but that's boring. So, like, make it available and make it convenient to do. I'll happily buy the stuff if it's easy.
This is a genuine shut up and take our money situation.
Yeah.
You have a market here. Okay, at some point you're going to want to sell it to Channel 5 or something equally awful that will market it terribly and no one will be paying attention anyway. And yes, maybe you lose us, minority of people, from the viewing figures for that who, let's face it, probably wouldn't have watched it live anyway.
The thing about this is that you can charge enthusiasts through the nose and they will pay it. Like, it's ridiculous how much, like, you sort of think, oh, the average person will not pay whatever it would cost for this to be profitable. I mean, I assume to get a series of BattleBots would be like 30 quid maybe. I don't know.
I think it's something like a $20 season pass
20,
on Amazon in America.
Okay, so 20.
Or some people did a Philo subscription that didn't cost much either.
Yeah, so like
But
20.
of course, we would expect to pay a premium as overseas viewers. We'd be fine with that.
Yeah, so I'm sort of like, 20, 30 quid for the season of BattleBots and stuff. It's like, but that's obviously most people are probably not going to pay for that, but like we would. And I think we'd probably go, I would probably go a bit more than that. It depends, obviously people's financial situations vary and stuff. But like you could get people that would be willing to pay a bit more than that as well, to get access to it. So it's sort of like, you can make up the difference, I would have thought, by just charging people through the nose.
And also it means that you get our viewership in a way that you can measure and promote to the people that want to advertise with you. You can get credit for our viewership. Now, I know you don't like this way of thinking about media, but they are a company. This needs to make money for them to keep making it for us. So I would rather that my viewership at least helped them fund the program.
I am a firm believer that you can make money without selling people's privacy. Like,
no, I'm not saying selling people's privacy. I'm saying add us to the viewership figures so that you can tell an advertiser you are going to reach this number of people.
That's not good enough for advertisers, though. An advertiser doesn't want that. They want a full breakdown. They want to know how many 21-year-old males who think they might be gay are watching this. That's the level of information they want. They want everything they can possibly get to market all these things, because you sort of and they get it as well. You get parents learning that their daughter's pregnant because they suddenly start getting weird adverts from Target. This is they have this information. They can figure it out, and so far people have been willing to sell it, so they keep getting it. It's like, no. So like I sort of agree that in theory, just the numbers should be enough, and for sensible industries like podcasting, it is enough. But in the world of big money that's already broken, it's not enough anymore, and they would just want everything they can get.
If some company wants to pay Discovery to sell me pictures of Craig Charles, then I am fine with that. I don't care which of my interests they pick up on, as long as it gets me more BattleBots. You have no idea how much I struggled to think of a weird product that wouldn't reveal anything about me.
Oh dear. There we go.
I think we can make Craig Charles the new Louis Theroux of t-shirts.
I don't know where to go from here.
I think you go to an outro, don't you? Unless you got anything else.
You can find the show notes for this episode at spinnerproof.com/episode/41. And there you can find links to the stuff we've been talking about today. You can also find a link to our Twitter at Spinnerproof, where you can tweet to us some personal information for us to sell to an advertiser.